And my answer was, I don't know.
Do you wanna try to pull together a WrestleFest episode?
Do you think we can?
Who's ready for story time with Town, baby?
Too sweet. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the BREWDCAST Storytime with Town. I am, as always, Bud Robinson, and joining me tonight is Storyteller Town, the most venerable Storyteller Town.
Seems to be a very good description of me.
And tonight we are talking about WWA Wrestlefest, the legend that was, or is.
What was?
I mean, I guess it's still a legend. It doesn't exist anymore. We don't do it.
In our hearts, it exists, Bud.
Yes.
In our hearts.
In our hearts. So why don't we start just by, we can start at the beginning and sort of talk about how WrestleFest came about. Maybe we should actually talk about what WrestleFest is.
So we should talk about our quote-unquote pay-per-view setup first.
Yeah.
Because when we initially started, we just ran a show. We didn't really have a TV show per se. We just ran. I don't know if you remember this, but this is back in the day behind the garage.
Mm-hmm.
We would run our quote-unquote pay-per-view,
mm-hmm.
and then we would do TV afterwards.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we had an A show and a B show. And those were probably some of, we don't have any video footage of that, thank God, because it was some of the most dreadful shit we've ever done.
Yeah.
But so, our initial plan was we were going to run a show, and we were going to, cycle through them. So, and then we kept that going. That was a Dear Leader idea. And we just kind of kept that going. The issue with that was, you'd have a title reign that was 3 pay-per-views long,
mm-hmm.
which was at one point our limit. You could only hold it for 3 pay-per-views, and you got to lose it, which also didn't make sense to me at the time, but whatever. Yeah. So everybody's reign was 3. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't. I didn't. I don't think I even knew that.
You won it from. I don't even remember how the fuck you won it. So I was the champion as Bud Smith, and then I bailed on Bud Smith, and we went in a whole totally different direction. Then I went to hardcore, and then me and Borton were feuding, and you were feuding with Canyon,
mm-hmm.
and you were the first champion, and then we could only have 3 months, so it went from you to Schmaz to me to Greenberg to Borton, and then I think we kind of crapped on it. We got rid of it because we realized it didn't work. And I think another thing that we did was we introduced our weekly TV show, which I think was a much better way to do it, because otherwise we were building a whole thing in it didn't make any sense. We couldn't run any storylines.
Right.
And that was about 98, 99. So right around the time where WrestleMania kind of picked up again.
Mm-hmm.
I thought WrestleMania, let's be honest, WrestleMania is the biggest show in wrestling, and there's no argument.
Yeah.
And it's got the most history and the most shit happens there, and it's pretty fucking amazing all around.
Mm-hmm.
So we were trying to find our version of that, and I remember this story well. I bought the Smash Mouth CD.
Okay.
With Walking on the Sun on it, and yeah, I know. Rainville and I were listening to these songs, and we were trying to come up with a name for a show. We listened to a song called "Why Can't We Be Friends," and it was that's perfect. So our first big foray into making videos and shit like that, and I'm putting them on our website,
mm-hmm.
was "Why Can't We Be Friends" to that song, because it was the perfect. It was a great slogan, and we kept that name.
Yeah.
But it kind of, I wouldn't say it lost value, but it kind of wasn't our top show. Because we basically were trying to copy, and we just were. We were copying the schedule that WWE had. We wanted a February or March show to kind of be like our WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to our dear leader, and we got to have a name for this, And he came up with the worst possible name ever. Brawl for the Best. Do you fucking remember Brawl for the Best?
Yes, because I think I commented like why are we stealing the name for this horrible shoot fighter? Because I thought like it's almost identical to the shoot
Brawl
fight
for All.
thing, Brawl for All. Yeah. I think we even used the Brawl for All theme at some point, or maybe we just tagged it onto somebody.
We ran that show one time. We came in. That was when we were first in the basement, and we came in, and our dear leader had this vision for what this should be.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this idea, we're going to have total elimination, which was our Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
And that one I kind of liked.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he stole it from the guys from ECW, but whatever. So we're gonna do a Rumble, and then we're gonna go into Brawl for the Best, and we're gonna have this big build. And at the time, I would say we were treading water, would be putting it lightly, because we had no idea what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how to build. We didn't know how to do shit. And so we waltzed into Total Elimination, and Bud Smith won Total Elimination that year. And then he faced AC Cruz for the championship and won it, and it led to probably the most boring title reign ever, and that was mine as Bud Smith. I think I fought Payne, and then we just kind of, so like our first Brawl for the Best, we had all these ridiculously ideas of what it was going to be and how important it was, and I remember we did it and it sucked. And I don't know if you remember that at all. I don't know if you remember anything about that show.
Mm.
I remember me and Cruz, the dear leader, going in the main event, and it was just shit. It was a bad match because we couldn't, we didn't know how to work, and I don't think him and I we didn't have great chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I was punching him in the face, then I had really good chemistry. But so we kind of came out of that, and I remember he left shortly after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that you and I kind of having a conversation that we need a better name. And if I'm remembering this right, the idea for WrestleFest was a Rainville idea. Because I can't take credit for that, and I don't think you can. I think it was him. Pretty sure it was him. He said it because now, granted, WrestleFest there was a game called WrestleFest, and the WWF ran a thing in England that was called WrestleFest, but we stole that.
Yeah,
it was a good name. It was a good name, and we immediately put that as our we slid that into our February slot, and that was our big show of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, the build to our first WrestleFest. Can I bring this back in my head? So it would have been, I do remember it, because it was right around the time that Metal Militia broke up. And Scott Borton was the champion. And it was right after, no, it was before Turn the Page. It was the year before we did the band. We had the band for Turn the Page. Wasn't it? It was 99. Yeah, it was right before we had the band, so this would have been 98. And we, it's not right. Town's wrong. Our first WrestleFest was after Turn the Page 99, so it would have been 2000. So, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It was 90. Yep.
That sounds
so that's
right,
what it was. That's what it was. So we had the band come, and that was for New Year's, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
We had Turn the Page. And at the time, we were starting to get a little traction with the booking.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into WrestleFest that year. The main event was Hardcore Borton for the world belt. And he was the heel champion, and I was the face challenger. And that was the match where I realized, backward. I'm the bad guy, he's the good guy. Mm-hmm. We got to flip this around, because it just didn't make any sense. And then we had the Metal Militia thing, where Metal Militia, we were both in it. Hardcore got turned on, Shockwave got turned on, Scott Borton took it over with Greenberg, Mike Green, and Jumpstart.
Mm-hmm.
And Jumpstart was feuding with the Brood.
Of course.
And so when we went into that WrestleFest, we actually, I think that was one of the first times where we had managed to build up a fair amount of matches.
Yeah.
And not just a focus on one.
Yeah.
We got really good at that. So that WrestleFest, we walked in, and like I said, Hardcore Borton was the main event, and then it was Shockwave. Do you remember who you fought? I do.
Oh God. No, I don't. Because it
Greenberg.
was it Green?
Greenberg.
Oh yeah, it was Greenberg. Right.
So we put a lot into those two matches. Jumpstart, it was their last match.
Right.
It was Sean Walker. It was his last match, or his last night. I think, just in case, I think that was his last night too. We lost a fair amount of guys. We had those guys for about 5-6 months, and they kind of just petered off.
Yeah.
Which was okay because the time they were there, it was great. Like they weren't into it like we were. But we managed. I think that was like one of the first times we managed to make it feel like Brawl for the Best felt like everything else we did, and this one actually felt like we put effort into it, and like we were stopping certain things and starting new things. Like this was a point we could build off of.
The phrase that comes to mind right now is that falling with a purpose. Like when somebody describes like learning to fly as a human being. I don't know. I heard it in a video today, and like I sort of feel like it was the same way. Like we had some hits, we had some misses, but overall we had purpose. We had a direction we were going towards. Especially right around that time.
It was interesting because we did turn the page, and I think turn the page was a very bad night of what we did. It was not good. We had one crazy hardcore match. That was all we had. We had nothing. And Bud Robinson hit somebody in the head with a ladder. I gotta always bring that up. But
sorry again. I didn't mean to.
Again, that was not a very good night. And then it was like I remember sitting down with you and we started talking. We used to write in a notebook and plan all this shit far ahead. And I remember sitting there with you after that, and I was like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we shouldn't lock ourselves in like that. Maybe we need to be a little more on the fly, because if people aren't going to show up and something happens, we want to go in a different direction. We've locked ourselves in because we've got like 4 months of booking, and that's just not the way to do it. And we went into Total Elimination. I think we had a better plan that year.
Yeah,
and we had a build, and that really felt like. I'm trying to remember Total Elimination. I know I won the damn thing, but I don't remember. I don't remember how. I don't remember that much about it. I think it was.
Conversely,
I think it was pretty.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was pretty unforgettable. But we had an actual plan, and there was a storyline going on that was kind of like. I know the main event of Total Elimination was Shockwave against Scott Borton for the World Championship. That I remember, but I know I won the Rumble, and the last elimination was Greenberg. So we had that basis of these are our 4 guys. This is what we need to focus on, you know. Then we got into WrestleFest that year, and we pretty good. We came out of WrestleFest, and it was really, I think, creatively the first time that we were like, okay, we're on to something.
Yeah, and conversely, I think before you and I took over, a lot of the booking was done on the fly. So I think that was why you and I started booking so far in advance. But the difference is that back then we didn't know how to tell stories, and by booking so far in advance, we were teaching ourselves how to tell stories. And then, we realized the fault in that, but I think that because of that, our on the fly storytelling became better. And not just us. I think like Borton and later Worgasmo benefited from that too. Greenberg too.
Jensen too.
Yes, Jensen.
I think another piece of that was when Dear Leader was there. It was always, I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
And we inherited a lot of that from him because that's what we thought we were supposed to do. And it was a lot of, hey, this is your character. This is how you need to act. And then I remember we got to there, and then it was kind of like, it was Greenberg. Because I remember Greenberg being like, I want to do this. I know my character's a little goofy, but I want to do this. I was like, oh, okay. And then Jensen had an idea, and it was something like, if it's your character, why the fuck am I telling you what to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like overarching, if we're putting a storyline together, then it becomes, yeah, okay, we got to end up in the same spot, but like, I don't need to tell you these finer details of your character.
Yeah.
And I think that was, this was almost a renaissance period for us, because this is also when we did all our fucking battle royals.
Yeah.
But we started to get more characters. We started to have more ideas, and like people were starting to experiment a little bit. And it wasn't the same. We weren't all trying to have the same match anymore.
Right. Right.
And I think that build. I do think, as far as being a booker for you and I, going into that WrestleFest and the way we did that, and then the way we came out of it, it opened up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it opened up quite a bit, and it just kind of set us up for good shit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was an excellent show. And I think you're right that Turn the Page was sort of like the eye opener for us, that we need to do things differently.
It really was, because it was like, I remember you being pissed.
Yes.
And that was not totally my fault, but kind of our fault.
Yeah.
The other issue is we couldn't time a show, so that was a big issue we had for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But and we also didn't understand the way a crowd worked, and that really was the first time we had a legitimate crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in the mind of what's the most important thing in your company, it's the World Championship. Okay, well, how the fuck are you going to follow that with a guy that probably isn't ready for that spot where you were with Walker?
Right.
You know.
Right.
So we should have planned that one out a little better.
But also, I remember saying, you know, I should go on last. We should go on last because we're the world title. But in retrospect, think of the people who were coming to that show, right? Like, those people were not coming to see technical wrestling. They came there to see somebody get hurt. And so, like, that was wrestling at the time. That was, people wanted to watch people hurt each other. And so, like, when we put you and Borton on, that was the match that really got them. And I think the other matches probably they were most sort of interested in, but like, once you start hitting a guy with a bunch of stuff, like, it's hard to turn away from that.
We were able to land some comedy.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to land some stuff, but all in all, it was pretty. I mean, it was an experience. It wasn't as bad as the second one we did.
No, God, no.
That one was just that one spiraled.
I think the crowd was much more into it, maybe than we remember, but definitely much more into it than they were out on the farm. Like, nobody was really even like watching us. We were like out in the middle of the field, and the band was playing in the house, and so like
they were playing in the pole shed.
Yeah.
And we were there, and it was just the band was they were so fucked up.
Yeah.
And I was just, we should have just left, but yeah, that one
we did.
Good. Yeah. That was the most fun car I ever had home. Riding in the back of the truck with Borton, staring at each other like, well, that sucked. And the irony of that one was we probably had better wrestling matches, but we just didn't have the control. And that was an experience where I learned when you're promoting a show, you've got to have control of the situation. We didn't have control of the situation at all.
Yeah, very true.
So it was just kind of, but Leon's brother sold a steel chair for us. I remember that. There was a steel chair in one of the rooms we were in.
Oh, that's great.
So
I did not know that.
But yeah, we came out of WrestleFest, and it was pretty. We started to get our momentum,
mm-hmm.
and I think one other important piece of that is we did that show, and then we started immediately talking about what the hell are we going to do next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we made that our focal point, which wasn't the case for us prior.
Mm-hmm.
And we were building. I think we were like we were in our minds. We're like, we're going to build this person up. We're going to build this person up. We're going to try to get let's do this. Let's build long term. Which really, I think that also changed a little bit of what we were doing, because we had our vision wasn't the next week our vision was a year from now, which was never the case because we'd blow a big angle in 20 seconds and not care.
Yeah.
We had no patience.
Yeah.
You know, so it was good. And I think we went into that summer. I think that as far as in-ring work, it wasn't our best, but I think we got better and we started storytelling and we rolled into the next year quite a bit hotter.
Yeah.
Rolling into WrestleFest Part 2.
Yeah.
So do you remember anything about WrestleFest Part 2?
No.
I remember the main event was a triple threat.
Okay.
It was Hardcore the champion, the heel champion, versus Scott Borton versus Adam Jensen.
That sort of rings a bell.
And then Jensen won, and Moshref was there. That's why.
Oh, right.
You were there. I don't, for the life of me, remember who you fought at that show.
Well, if it was 2001, Orgasmo would have been there, but I don't think I fought him.
No.
He wasn't there yet?
He was later in 2001. No, he was there. I take that back. He was there.
Yeah. Yeah, because he would have come at turn the page.
So he was probably, I would be willing to bet it was him.
Yeah,
more than
probably.
Likely.
Yeah, because we started putting the two of us together pretty early. Like, he had a program with, where he was a heel with, oh my God, G-Shock.
Yep.
For a while.
And that was when we had the famous nut incident match where I punched him in the nut 46 times.
Yes.
And then he picked it up quick, though.
Mm-hmm.
We've told him that before. And then he won the strap in, oh, God. Speaking about that pay-per-view on the farm, we had a football game and Borton got hurt and couldn't wrestle because we redid the show the following week.
Yeah.
And then we put the strap on Orgasmo.
Yeah.
And he won it from hardcore, and it was a pretty solid match. And then his attendance got slightly spotty for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he had something, I don't remember specifically what he had going on.
I think
but it was work. And
he had a job or work or something.
There was work, but there was some other stuff that was going on, and he missed like a couple weeks. And I remember we had him fight Damar at Blitzkrieg in November, and he lost the belt. He lost the belt to Damar, and we were going to run with Damar,
mm-hmm.
and then Damar won the belt and just never showed up again. So we had to go in, and then we had to do turn the page. 2000. We had to have we had plans that were suddenly shit on.
Yeah.
And we had to get a champion, and we went with Hardcore because that was safe. Because we needed somebody to be with G-Shock, because G-Shock was the evil heel commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Who better than Hardcore?
Right. So
him and I started our little quote-unquote power trip thing, and we were trying to figure out, I remember the conversation with you, was we got to do something a little different. We can't just bank on Hardcore Board. Which was not true. We could have just banked on Hardcore Board and we would have been fine. But we didn't do that. So what we did was... we banked on Hardcore Board anyways. Because Borton won the total elimination.
Mm-hmm.
And he threw out Aaron Douglas, who was one of my stooges, was the last guy in there. And Hardcore came out, and somehow I threw out Douglas on accident, and Borton won.
Yeah.
Before that, I had a 60-minute Iron Man match with Jensen. Which is, my God, one of my favorite matches ever. Because we legitimately went 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Why the fuck I wanted to do that, I don't know. I was proving a point to somebody. But I remember we got in there and he was amped up. Because this was like his first main event thing. He'd never gotten a main event before.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was a big deal to him. And we got in there and we did about 5-6 minutes of shit. And he puts me in a headlock and just goes, oh, I'm tired. And you reffed that match.
Yeah, I did.
And you're just sitting there chuckling. But we pulled off this match in, I remember being a part of it, but I remember also kind of looking at it from afar and being like, holy fuck, I want Jensen to win this match. I don't want Hardcore to fucking win. You know what I mean? We somehow built him up. When the ending was, we were tied, and then Borton came out and super kicked me in the face with counted as disqualification.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jensen hit a pancake but couldn't get the pin. in time.
Right.
So he just barely lost. So I remember after that talking to you on the phone, and I was like, maybe we make that main event a triple threat and give the belt to Jensen.
Yeah.
And we were both kind of like, him and Han, and just kind of like, meh. And then it was, no, that's fucking totally perfect. That would be the perfect thing to do. That's exactly what we did, and that was, I remember that was a good match. That was a good match. I mean, in terms of what we were doing back then.
Right.
And he won the belt, and it was kind of one of those. He was only a one-time champion, but like in that moment, he beat the two biggest guys we had.
Yeah.
Like the biggest names, he beat them in the same match to become champion.
Yeah.
Now, granted, some of the shit we did afterwards kind of faltered that, but that felt like a breath of fresh air. And God, I'm trying to remember what else we did that night. The Brood had a match. I know that for a fact because we went away and then we came back. That was about the time we came back.
Were the Brood in the Battle Royal that night?
Total Elimination?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of Total Elimination, not.
Yeah, we were in Total Elimination. I'm pretty sure we had a spot together in Total Elimination. I think we might have eliminated one another.
I think we did.
Because that was the most Brood thing you could have done. That was right. So that was right after Pain in the Bodyguard. The Brood went away because of Pain in the Bodyguard, and Town and Bud kind of did their own thing, and Pain in the Bodyguard served a really good purpose, and they were great for a period of time. But once they completed that test, they were completely useless. Yeah, because they couldn't be. They really didn't have the staying power. They were great for Orgasmo, but once Orgasmo beat the shit out of them finally, and what do we have left for these guys? Yeah. They were a fine tag team and they worked, but they were just it wasn't gonna stick. So we brought the Brood back. I remember that. The Brood was there. Pretty sure the Brood won the belts that night because that's kind of what happened. I don't know. Were you U.S. champion back then? I don't think you were, because I think that was also the point where we started to pull the U.S. belt away from the Shockwaves and shit like that. So
I'm not sure. I feel like we had a run for a while where we were like, we wanted to build up the TV title. And so we put it on, or not TV, the US title?
Yeah.
And so we put that on Shockwave for a while. And then we dropped it back down to the like upper mid card.
Yeah. And we got like...
I don't remember when that was.
That had to be... I fucking remember who the US champion was. It was Rex.
Oh, okay.
Rex fought Devo. Yeah. That was when we did the Devo Rex. Do you remember that? Yeah. Shenanigan piece of shit. Oh my god.
They were great.
Yeah. Rex fought Devo, and he was the champion, and I got disqualified. We should have never given Rex the U.S. championship because I don't remember how the hell we got it off of him. Devo killed him that night, though, I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. No, I killed his lover, Stefan. Never mind. That's something totally different. That was a different... We had ketchup and a butter knife and everything. But that WrestleFest felt big. It felt important. It felt like we actually were doing something here. Like this one... This isn't like another monthly show. This was a big deal. We put a lot into it. Yeah. And I think everybody was like a little more amped up for it and excited for it.
Yes. Yeah, I think
that's when... That was about the time when people would start talking about, what are we doing at WrestleFest? Like, people ask me, well, can I have a match at WrestleFest next year? Can I have this? Can I have that? Like, that wasn't before. That started right around this. Yeah. And I think it was the first time that we showed a willingness to put the belt on somebody that wasn't necessarily one of those core guys, even though Jensen was a core guy because he wasn't at the time. Like, we're willing to take a chance on that because that, that'll work.
We had a lot of people that could have, like, we had a lot of people who had one or two runs. Like, I'm thinking like Damar, like Jensen, like
Kazam.
Kazam. And I think once you have like we spent so long bouncing the belt between a few people that once you start entering these extra faces in there, it makes things a lot more interesting, because then you're like, oh shit, Jensen could win this one.
It also, but also ping-ponging between those certain people makes it feel more important, because then you got to be on a level to get there. So I think it was kind of a But we were ready to get some of those. And speak of that, I mean, we rolled through. The following year was one of the craziest fucking years we ever had, because we had Jensen was champion. He was supposed to lose it in a 4-way to Borton, and Borton and Hardcore were the two finalists. But we were together as Double D.
Right.
No, that was before we were together. I take that back. It was before we were together. And then he went for a splash in the corner and just destroyed his ankle and fell down and was like, pin me. And so if you watch back, I'm like, what? And so I just pinned him. So I'm the champion. I'm not supposed to be the champion.
Right.
And then I'm like, well, I'm not holding on to this because wasn't the plan. So I put over Cage as the champion.
Oh God,
was
I love
was
that.
like 11.
Yeah. His run was amazing though. God.
So him and I had a couple of solid matches, and I knew how to work with him, and we did some cool shit.
Yeah.
And I remember we went into the pay-per-view, and he was the number one contender, and like everything was in place, and we were just like, okay, so G-Shock and Orgasmo have the power. Shockwave was... You were vibing in your own way at that time. We were about to get a really good... that was the summer of Shockwave. Because there was nobody else there to bother you.
Yeah, that's true.
There wasn't.
Yeah.
So Shockwave kind of was picking up, and that was going good, and then Hardcore and Borton were, we were trying something new because we couldn't keep this feud going. We had to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Hindsight 2020, we could have just said, fuck it, wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So I put over G-Shock because of interference from Orgasmo, and then Hardcore Borton left, and we were gone for about, legitimately didn't have those two characters on the show for like 2 months.
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You wouldn't know because Town was there.
That's true.
And Town took over. That was probably Town's best run, because I had to slide in to being like, because not everybody could always cut their own promos, and sometimes I had to cut the promos because I had to kind of like the authority promos.
Mm-hmm.
So Town just had to join to our authority group and be part of that.
Yeah.
So then in Town I had to run as Town, and I was a hardcore champion and like all this shit. So like Town was doing stuff, and that was when DGM came about.
Right.
For the same reason, because the Brood was broken up.
Mm-hmm.
Bud was doing his thing. Town was doing his thing. We needed DGM. We had DGM, the Fat Fucks. We had some good teams.
Yeah.
PH for the word fact. So like we had all that going on, and then you beat Cage for the championship,
mm-hmm.
and then we turned you heel.
Yes.
And then it was just gangbusters.
I loved that.
And you had a run till you lost it to Borton.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went into the so that would have been 2002, WrestleFest 2002, which technically was our last WrestleFest. We only had 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we only had 3 because
that would have been March, and we stopped doing March shows then. Yeah, that's a good point.
It was February actually, but yeah.
Okay.
February, March. So we had a good, from a storyline standpoint, like 2001 and 2002 probably was one of our best runs because we had so much shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, after WrestleFest that year, we had even more going on. Like, we had a really good summer of shit. Like, everything was hot. We were clicking on all cylinders. So the WrestleFest 02, do you remember that main event? I mean, just guess.
Was that the 4-way? No,
Nope.
because that was out back.
Nope.
That
was a good match too, though.
I mean, my guess is Hardcore Borton, really.
It was Hardcore Borton in the steel cage.
Oh yeah.
Remember? We built the steel cage in the basement.
Oh,
Of all the WrestleFests, that might be my least favorite.
Okay.
Because that match didn't need to happen, but we didn't have anything else. So basically, it was we're just going to do our normal match inside of a cage because we have a cage and it looks cool.
Yeah.
That's all we did, and the cage itself was a piece of shit. But I thought everything else we did into there. I mean, I'm trying to remember any other match from that night. Again, I can't.
Perhaps that's why it was our
it was
least
just
successful.
not a good. It's interesting because we put a lot of that show mattered to us,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also like I think the idea we had was we want to put our biggest match out there and have that main event our biggest show.
Mm-hmm.
And Hardcore Borton in the cage, okay, you can't really compete with that in terms of what we're doing. But the match itself was not. It wasn't what it should have been. You know, it was just a little bit less than what I wish it would have been. I'm trying to think. Did you fight Orgasmo there?
I don't think I did. Maybe I did.
I don't think you did either. I don't think we were doing that. The kicker here, though, is like we ran that show, and then right after that, we turned Scott Borton heel.
Yeah.
And Hardcore went face, and that was the whole pickled egg summer. And that storyline was fantastically different for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it got a lot of people involved. And that was when, to me, that last period of time from like WrestleFest to that August when we stopped, that period of time, like creatively, probably was our best. Till the end when we all knew what the fuck we were doing. But like for that period of time, in that second, because we kind of have our first era of paper belts in the backyard and not knowing what we're doing, into our second era, which was we figured it out, and then our third era was we knew what the fuck we were doing.
Yeah.
But that second era, that was kind of that was like our watershed moment. And it's ironic because like our WrestleFest probably wasn't as good as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
But we had, we came out of that, and just off the top of my head, I remember we had a Nero Nemo feud.
Mm-hmm.
That for like, they were fighting over 2 belts. I don't remember what they were. One was the U.S. and I think one was like, it might have been a cruiserweight, even though there's not a fucking cruiserweight. But we had a match. I think it would have been Green Hell or the April one, Hell on Earth, one of those. It was probably Green Hell. We had a match at Green Hell. Green Hell was our last show in the basement. And we went all out on that show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fucking amazing show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this culmination. It definitely was Hell on Earth, now that I think about it. Because I remember Nemo beat Nero by hitting him in the nuts with a trash can.
Oh, right.
We had a Brood tag team match that was really, and to be honest, I don't remember who the fuck it was with, but we had a good tag team match. The U.S. match was good. The main event was good. Like everything was good at that point. We came out of that WrestleFest and we were just like, everything was hot. And I'm remembering that for the main event, which is what you do for a big show. If you have a lackluster main event, you're kind of like, oh, that show kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Even though it probably didn't, because I think we actually put a lot of thought into everything else we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was kind of our MO at that point was, let's build this shit up right. We were doing it. But I mean, that last WrestleFest led into our summer and just, it was gangbusters. That was a good summer.
Yeah,
we had a lot of good shit happen.
I think, well, that summer also was sort of up in the air because we didn't know what everybody's going to do. That was the year we graduated. And so Borton was going to be gone and Orgasmo was going to be gone.
Orgasmo was back and then gone.
Yeah. And they wound up They wound up not being, but like, we were like, well, what the fuck are we gonna do? And I think you and I at that point were you, me, and Jensen, G-Shock might have been there too. And I think like we had gotten our sea legs, and so like we went all out, like, and I think we were looking at it in the same way that we did that year that was actually our last year. Like we looked at it as though we need to make this count because this is our last bit.
Because we didn't know, nobody knew if we were going to ever do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that final. I remember that final show and everything, and it was good. It was a very productive. It was a very productive run. I thought, just from a creative standpoint, I felt like we were kind of hitting on all cylinders, and we had good storylines. We were telling decent enough stories. We weren't being shitty, you know.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that was, I mean, literally, we had 3 WrestleFests.
Yeah.
And they all were a catalyst for like what we were gonna do for the year, and they set us up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though we are like our worst WrestleFest was our 3rd one, but it didn't matter because we still we came out of that strong. And I'm totally ripping on that right now, and that probably wasn't our worst WrestleFest. Like, I'm pretty willing to say that. We probably had other things on that show that were really good, but I, to be honest, cannot remember a single one. I remember the cage. That's all I remember. I built it with G-Shock, and I got him drunk. So,
as you do,
happens. You know, when you build a cage, you gotta have a couple beers. No, it was an interesting show, though. I mean, I think the cage looked cool,
mm-hmm.
and the match was not bad, but it just wasn't. There was no way to use that cage.
Yeah,
you know. And we didn't. I don't think we understood the point of a cage match. Is to not get out. If we would have had the psychology of somebody trying to get out, yeah, then it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
But we didn't really have that because we were in a fucking basement and shit. So, but if you go back to the house, there's still remnants of that cage hanging on that fucking ceiling.
I would bet. Yeah.
You know, and then I guess if you look at shows we consider to be big shows, we closed every summer with the same show in August, and that would have been, we didn't call it King Nothing, though. I don't know what the hell we called it. We changed it up because we didn't end with King Nothing.
I'm trying to remember. I thought it was Why Can't We Be Friends, but I think that was 1 or 2 shows.
That was June. We did that every June.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we did. I think we did something else. We did something else in August, and that was kind of our blow-off show. So we ran from about May to August.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 years? That doesn't seem right. That's right, though. It was only 2 years.
No.
So we ran one. Yeah.
I mean, if you're counting 02, it would be 3. So 02, 03, 04.
Yeah, but 02, we ran 02 like normal. No, you know what? We did have a different show at the end of 02. We didn't have King Nothing. We had something else. We had a theme to that show, and I can't remember what the fuck it was. It was not Yesterday's. That was our last one. Right? Yeah, that was our last one.
Yeah, that was our last theme.
We had another one, though, that summer because it was like Borton's last one.
Mm-hmm.
But we put a lot into that, and those were good. I mean, when we came back, the summers were great. I mean, if you look at the ultimate big show we had would have been Yesterday's. And that was our last one. And that one was that one we could do a podcast on. I remember enough about that one.
Yeah.
But like that was all hands on deck. Everybody went. There was only 5 of us.
God,
if you watch that show and see the 5 of us compared to like one of those shows where we had 12 or 15, you compare how good they were.
Yeah.
Not even close. We were that much better.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we had been honing our crafts. We had been honing our craft for over 7 years at that point.
Yeah. I think, and then you look at, what's the legacy of WrestleFest for us, and I think it's just, I think it gave us, we're going somewhere.
Yeah.
We're not just going monthly. We've got a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a show to aim for. We've got to get there. And I think for you and I, when we started talking WrestleFest, it was how are we going to get there? What are we going to build up?
Right.
Because we used to have super long phone calls.
Yes.
Where we would talk about shit.
Yeah.
And we would throw shit out there like, I want to try this, I want to try that. And realistically, 70% of what we both said never happened.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just, we're throwing shit at a wall, and it'd be like, because I know tons of times I'd say something, and you'd be like, well, that's not a good idea. And you'd have something, I'd be like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So it was just, I think as bookers, it mattered to us more than any other show. And I think because of that and the way we built to that, I think it mattered to everybody else. And it kind of went down the chain, and it improved that, but it also improved everything leading up and after.
Yeah, because people wanted to make it to WrestleFest on their best note. You know, like they wanted to be there. There are 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy that we only had 3.
It feels
we really only had 3.
Yeah, it feels like we had them every year, but you're absolutely right, because we didn't have them to start with, and once we started just doing summers, we didn't start until May or June.
In April, which is pretty early.
Yeah, I suppose.
And the first show we had, it snowed.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, Christ.
But
yeah, because the camera kept steaming up or something.
Yep. Well, that was when it was really hot. We had to sit inside the house and record.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, that one, it's interesting to look because, granted, we were basically doing this for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we wrote our own show, and we got really good at putting them together, and we got really good at, and the beauty of it is that last summer, the second to last summer, we learned timing because we kept fucking shit up. And we kept, we'd have an opening match that was 47 minutes long.
Right?
And then we'd have to be like, no, okay, this can only be boom. You got to go home quick. And we learned how to build that show.
I remember having shows where we would just be like, we would start at 3 and we would go until it was dark out and we'd have to bust the lights out. We had a few shows that were like that. And some of them we did on purpose because we were running 1 or 2 shows because we were doing the 2 show thing with RWG or whatever. But some of them were just, we were fucking around too much.
We either started at 11
mm-hmm.
or we started at 7.
Right.
Or 6. Maybe it was 6. It was 6 or 7. But those 6 or 7 ones were usually in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't really do 6 or 7 outside because the neighbors called the cops on us every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did. We were really bad at that because I remember the first summer after 02, so the summer of 03, we came back and we're recrowning all our champions, and I don't know why we did that, but we were just like, fuck it, we're gonna do it. And our opening match was a tag team match. We hadn't wrestled since the previous summer, so we were just having a good time.
Yeah.
But we had 58 minutes of a good time, and then we got to the end, and we got to be done by a certain time,
Mm-hmm.
And it's suddenly our main event is 48 seconds long.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not,
not ideal.
Not so good. No. So we got that timing made a big difference. I think our last show was probably our best show.
Yeah.
I think just all around. I think the build up to it, I think everything we did, we started to get more of that psychology involved. But this wouldn't have happened if we would have just done the continual thing where every month we had a show and we were just randomly building to that show. We had to have a little bit of the schedule helped, and having that moment of, that's the moment, that's the big show.
Mm-hmm.
That's what has to matter. That's where we're going to have our biggest matches, our big title changes. That's where we're going to do that.
Right.
So it's we only had 3 total eliminations. Well, we had 4.
Yeah.
We had 4. And I won 1 as Bud Smith, 1 as Hardcore, Jensen won 1, and Scott Borton won 1. Actually, we had 5, I think, now that I think about it. 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. Yeah, we did. But I don't know who won 2002 total elimination. Couldn't tell you.
I can tell you it wasn't me.
Must have been Hardcore. Because I main evented WrestleFest.
Yeah, I think it was. In fact, I feel like that was the reason why we had it. I think we weren't going to have it that year, and then we were like, well, let's just do it, and that'll help us put hardcore in the main event. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, some of that runs together. It's interesting because, like, that last show we did, or, like, those last summers, that stuff's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could have conversations about each of the matches that we had that last show, but I've also seen the video for it, like, 400 times. So that might help. Whereas some of this stuff happened once. Like, I never watched that cage match back. Never saw it. I remember it. I remember doing a sharpshooter spot in there and just being like, the fuck are we doing? But, I think WrestleFest was our show. It was important. It was important to have, and it just kind of gave us something to work towards.
Yeah.
I think as a wrestler and as a booker, it was like, we got to get there, and it's got to be good. We can't do shitty there.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. The first couple of ones, they were good though. None of them were bad.
Yeah.
I know I'm shitting on the last one, but none of them were really bad.
And I think, well, like you said, that was the time in which we were not great, but not bad either. We were taking the time to actually learn how to bump, how to tell stories, how to, psychology in a match. Like, how do you work somebody's arm? All that sort of stuff. Like the stuff that.
Do you remember our early Brood tag team matches? And how fucking shitty they were?
Yeah. I mean, I try to block it out.
Because one of us, we didn't know how to work the tag. So, like, I would go in and I would wrestle for, like, 30 minutes, beat the shit. Then it'd take we'd have no tags.
Yeah.
It was just, like, this constant thing. And I remember just, like, once we got the psychology of tag team wrestling down, and we understood the quick tag, and we understood the baby face in peril.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was a huge spot for us.
Yeah.
Because you were in peril and Tom would make the save. And it made perfect fucking sense every single time. And once we got that down, like, our matches got way more watchable.
Yes.
Because for a while it was just...
Yeah, when we first started, it was
bad.
We were just farting around. Like, that's what it was. And I have a feeling that we even had a discussion about it at some point. We're like, we got to work on this. Like, we did.
I'm pretty sure we did. What actually happened?
Stick around. We got to do this.
I'm pretty sure what happened was we had a tag team match that was like 25 minutes long, and I was in the ring for 23 minutes until we went to the finish.
Yeah.
You were like, "Hey, Town, what the fuck?"
Could you tag me in sometimes, please?
No. We just. Another piece of that, though, is that at that point, and this is another thing that I think, as we spent more time, like, WrestleFest to me is like the start of era number 2 for us. Maybe turn the page, WrestleFest, like right around that time, is we started to, like, what I'm doing as the Town Drunk cannot be the same thing I'm doing as hardcore.
Oh God,
what I'm doing is Devo or Nemo. Like, we have to have different, these guys have to be different. They have to wrestle different. They have to be different. They can't be the same. I can't rely on the same moves. I can't do the same shit.
Well,
I think before that, it was a lot more of whatever. I'm just gonna. These are my moves. I'm gonna do my moves. I gotta get my moves and they look cool. You know. And that was, Town Drunk shouldn't have cool moves. He's just an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he'll do his thing. He'll fight you, and then he'll hit you with the drunk driver, which was a stunner, which made no sense. But
I remember that time too, because that was the primary reason I got rid of. I had like a bunch of characters at one point, and I started getting rid of them because they were all the same. Like, I had a Gambit, I had Hellraiser, I had another guy, and they were all kind of the same guy. And I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like,
Gambit was not, because Gambit was part of our NWO faction as Gambit Corridor. Do you fucking remember that?
I do. Yeah.
We had Taboo. No, I mean, we got good at being different, and it's really hard when you first do it because you want your character. You have this idea of what your character should be and all these grandiose ideas, and it's really hard to come out as somebody else and not have that like want to still do that.
Yeah.
And like the understanding that what I'm doing is town is not what I'm doing is hardcore.
Right. Right.
And what I'm doing is Devo. I'm walking around in overalls with a ski mask on when it's 97 outside. Like, not going to be the same. Like, it's all going to be a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was hard for Rainville.
Yes.
Because he liked his spots.
Mm-hmm.
But even towards the end, he started it. Like, he got it. You know, Leon was always good at it because Leon could just go goofy with anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but then I remember because he had Leon, he had Jeb, who's clearly one of my favorites. He had Dwarfy, and then he had Orgasmo. So like he had 3 comedy and then 1 serious. Then we brought him in as Chet Danielson, and we got something totally different.
We did, yeah, yeah.
You know, so that was when we were able to do that. So like, when you can come with a different character and make it something totally different, and not just be the same thing that you were, you know.
Yeah.
Rainville and his Jinkos. I remember that. Just one of those fucking Jinkos. One show he wore him for every character, and I yelled at him. Change your fucking pants, dude. Then he dressed up as an Oompa Loompa.
Oh, God.
Which was
the less we say hilarious. About that. Actually, no, that was really funny. And
the Oompa Loompa was funny. Oh, my God. With Leon. I'm going to catch him!
Oh, dear.
That was a great... what I remember about that is he was an Oompa Loompa, and it was so goofy. And then he had to fight Orgasmo at the pay-per-view. And he's getting his ass kicked, and he finally gets it down. He throws the wig off and goes, fuck this! I'm gonna kick his ass for real! And he goes to the end and he gets chokeslammed and pinned. It's just like... Oh
I remember that, yeah. Oh, God.
But, yeah, no, WrestleFest kind of was a thing, because it gave us a little bit... Just that whole... Here's where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to... We're just going to run this random show and we're going to pretend like we don't like each other. We build things. We started building things over more than just a week.
It's instead of just saying you're a heel today, you're a face today. Yeah, we were starting to realize you have to have a reason for that. You can't just have two guys want to fight each other because you feel like it.
And turns matter. That was the other important thing. Turns matter. Yeah. That schedule that we installed and the plan and the way we're going to run these shows and shit, that just made such a huge difference. And it kind of gave us the confines of what we had to book within and how we had to build. And we got to that point where like we'd be the week before a show, we would actually have a show, like we would build into the show as opposed to just doing a match and just doing whatever. We'd actually have some kind of storyline or angle that would lead into the pay-per-view match.
Right. Yeah.
Which was pretty good. I mean, it was good. We got good at storylines before we got good at wrestling. Yeah.
I think we had a lot of focus on that. You and I in particular, like we spent a lot of time thinking about that.
That was one of the benefits of being inside, though. We had that ability to control our environment.
Yes.
And when we were inside, we did not have room to do crazy shit.
Yeah.
So it had to be really focused and really... we had to focus more on the stories. We had to focus more on the angles of characters.
Yeah.
Because sometimes down there, it would be way easier to... Let's just go out there and cut a promo instead of having like a tag team match. Because the promo is going to be way easier point to get this across.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's a very good point.
I mean, even like... You know, after WrestleFest, like Steve the janitor, Steve the Real American, that's when that happened.
Yeah.
And we ran angles with him, and he turned heel once. We ran angles with him. You know, it was just like we got in Jimbo and like all these guys, like we got that ability to use these people that weren't necessarily wrestlers. Leroy Brown, probably my favorite, I think. Leroy Brown was just watching Jensen walk to the ring like a badass, talk shit, and then just get destroyed and bleed every time. Every single time. I'm here, you're going to do what I say, or I'm going to kick your ass. Okay. He just gets beat up.
Oh, God.
Oh, that was good.
With him.
his mixtures of fake blood. He got good at it.
Yeah.
I remember when we thought of that character. It's like fucking, we were drunk like on a Saturday night, or not. It was probably even summer. I don't know if we were. No, it was probably a Saturday night, Friday night, and it was before wrestling came back, and we were drinking and we were listening to Leroy Brown, the song. And it's like, this would be a cool character. I'm like, really? You'd be a cool character if you just got your ass kicked. He's like, yeah, I'll come out to the ring and I'll act like a badass and I'll get my ass kicked and I'll just bleed all the time. Cash money.
Done. Yeah.
Let's do that. I mean, I think WrestleFest just kind of gave us, trying to bring it back because clearly we got to go home here soon.
Yeah.
But I think WrestleFest just gave us that. It gave us that focal point. It gave us that spot to be, and it made everything else matter a little more because everything's building to that point or building off of that point.
Right. Yeah.
And we didn't have that before with Brawl for the Best.
No. That was just a show. Like that was I think that was the big difference is when we had the schedule.
Did you remember the fucking logo for Brawl for the Best?
There was a logo?
It was brown.
Ugh.
It was a brown logo. It was like brown stones with like gold writing that was just like slightly a different color than the brown. So it was like the brown but slightly goldish that said Brawl for the Best. Like an old school paint thing that somebody made back in 1998. I just remember looking at that and like, what the fuck? That was bad.
Oh,
that was
dear.
bad.
Yeah.
That was not a good, but we were figuring it out. I mean, I get it, but I don't know. I remember things that happened back then, but I don't remember those matches. I remember the ending of the Bud Smith AC Cruz match of Brawl for the Best because he fucked up a stunner.
How?
Did not sell the stunner right. He like twisted on me and flopped down.
Oh, right. I think
and then I pinned him, and I was just like, what the fuck? That was bad. And then I fought Payne the next month, and it was okay. And then it was just like, I remember sitting there after that, and Borton and I formed Double D. Bud Smith and Borton formed Double D. And we were just sitting there, and I remember just like on my front porch one day talking to Rainville and Dear Leader, just being like, what the fuck are we doing? This doesn't make any sense. This is stupid. I hated Bud Smith too. I never really liked Bud Smith. Yeah. But the reason that Bud Smith got the choice was because he was supposed to be Dear Leader's protege. And the only one that could beat him was protege because he showed him everything he knew. That's what I was told.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So I beat him, and then I don't know.
And then that didn't.
We had other shows that were consistently pretty important. Turn the Page was always a banger.
Yeah.
Why Can't We Be Friends was always a banger.
Yeah.
No Remorse, shockingly, was a pretty good show usually. That one would have been September.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that, for some reason, that one always was pretty good. The other ones we had our moments. Green Hell had a couple. Hell on Earth had a couple. Total Elimination was pretty solid. We put a lot into that one. Our July pay-per-view, Merciful Fate, and Independence Day, we had 2 in July. Mm-hmm. Never turned out that good.
No.
July was a bad month, and I don't know why. It might have been the heat. It might have been something. We just never. Those were never that good. King Nothing. We had some fun King Nothings. King Bud Robinson.
I forgot that happened. Oh dear.
That was the one Rainbow passed out.
Yeah.
Did we only do one King Nothing? We might have only done one. In fact, I think we only did. I think after that year we never did it again. We still did the show, but we didn't do the
like
we didn't
tournament?
have our extra. Yeah.
Which is funny.
Or maybe we did the tournament over like not all in one night. I don't know. That show was weird. I remember that. Yeah, we had some. July was never a good one.
Yeah, I don't much. I think you're right. I think it was the heat. We usually had a lot of issues with the camera and sort of fucked up. But July was also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that was when we started two-a-days.
Oh, that was
No,
August.
that was August. Yeah. I don't know. Not a clue.
It was weird. It was just a weird month. Because we had two every June as well. The day school got out, we had schools out,
Yeah, I remember that.
which was not so much pay per view, and more like a
special.
Yeah. Because we didn't do a lot with it. We had pretty basic matches. I mean, usually didn't do anything big there.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it was just pretty basic. And then, May was Overkill. Overkill, we had some bangers too.
Yeah.
Overkill was a good show. We had a lot of shit happen there. Overkill, Hell on Earth was April. That was another one that was kind of Green Hell was fun, but it was always the one after WrestleFest, so it was just Blitzkrieg in November. We talked about them all, but I think WrestleFest was clearly the most important one, the one we put the most into.
Yeah.
And it kind of just let us.
It's like the focus. I mean, you said it right. It was the focal point that we were pointing everything at.
Because we kept thinking about that. I remember talking to you in like May and being like, so what do we think for a WrestleFest main event? Which is weird because who knows who the fuck's going to be here. That was a big problem that we had, was we didn't have consistency out of people, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like we talk about Chris Kanyon in those early days after Dear Leader walked out, like Chris Kanyon was a huge piece of that. And then 4 months later, he wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
You know, or like Justin Case and Jumpstart, like they were fairly big pieces of what we were doing.
Yeah.
For like a 4 to 5 month period, then they were gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they'd come for a little bit, they leave, they come for a little bit and leave. So we didn't have, you know, and even Jensen for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like he came one show and then never came back, and then he was here, then he wasn't, then he was here, then he wasn't. And part of that, I think, back then was the fact that no one had a driver's license because we were all like 14.
Right.
But
yeah.
As we got older, it got a little better. I had a message that exciting. No, not really. So yeah, I mean, I think WrestleFest just it kind of steered the booking. It kind of steered everything.
Yeah.
And it meant something in our company to be in the main event at WrestleFest.
Yeah, I would agree.
I was in the main event. You never main event at the WrestleFest.
No, I didn't.
You got a CM Punk fight going there.
That's okay.
I'm not bitter. How did that never happen?
I think I just didn't have. I didn't have the fire at that point. Like most of my big runs, I think happened in the summer. For whatever reason.
True, because you main evented. Oh, Why Can't We Be Friends?
Mm-hmm.
You main evented probably more than one. Turn the Pages.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But then Morgasmo never main evented a WrestleFest either.
Yeah.
He only would have had one chance to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good point to leave it on. Leave. Ugh.
Just right on Bud's. Right on Bud's never getting a main event.
I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all.
Whispers into the mic. Fuck you, Town. I'm not bitter.
You'll read it in my autobiography, my memoirs. So this has been the BREWDCAST, Storytime with Town. We talked about WrestleFest. It was fun.
Good. It was a good story.
Yeah. And I learned something, that we only had 3 of them. Because
you know what?
I swear
I learned something too, because I didn't realize it was only 3 myself. I thought we had like 12 of them, but
no, not so much. So yeah, I am Bud Robinson. This has been Bud and Town, and we will bye.